All right. So I spoke to this young Australian kid. Okay. He shared a story that honestly captures all the mistreatment, bullying, and racism he faced from a particular Italian coach, the club officials, and even his own teammates. Now, keep in mind, we're talking lower league football here. Okay. So here's what happened. While his squad was doing your typical 5-5 or 5v5 drill, the coach pulls him aside, tells him to run laps instead. And once he's done, to pick up the pitch equipment. Now, his dad, based on our interviews, he was watching from the stands. And he sees his son's teammates laughing and pointing at his son. Now, when I asked his dad how he felt seeing that, he literally broke down. You know, you could feel his guilt. It's like he felt he'd failed to protect his son. Okay, so they showed up with respect for everyone at the club, and yet his son was singled out. What was the reason? There wasn't any. It was just straight up exclusion. Remembering, of course, that this kid was a foreigner in a new club, new country, etc. But wait, it gets worse. His teammates, from what he told us, burst out laughing. And there's this kid, this young teenage, 15, 16-year-old standing there humiliated, right? And to make matters even worse, the coach then tells him to go and collect all the jerseys that his teammates had literally tossed around the pitch. Like, seriously? Honestly, you don't need to be a psychologist to see this damage or the damage that this would have caused the poor kid, right? So the coach wasn't just harming one kid. He was essentially showing the entire squad that his behaviour was acceptable, right? So, and what message does that send? It literally normalises garbage behaviour. And then that spills over into everyday life for these kids. Discrimination, bigotry, racism, bullying, etc. So it's not just on the pitch. It affects everything and everyone. It wasn't a one-off, unfortunately. This young lad dealt with this sort of bullying and racism on a regular basis. It was absolutely toxic, and his coach was right at the centre of it. Imagine that. And let's be honest, right, while we're at it, this happens everywhere in football. Not just in one country, one level of the game, one division, one jurisdiction. It happens everywhere. Now, if we've got time, I want to tell you briefly another story. And this one's about an Italian kid, different club, different division, etc. This kid was playing in Spain. It was around 2018. To play a game. I think it was on a Saturday or Sunday. I can't recall based on the transcript. But things apparently took a turn for the worse really, really quick, right? So before the game kicked off, his coach came up to him and warned him that the home fans, because they were playing away, had planned to target him with abuse, right? I mean, can you imagine hearing that just before a game? And these fans apparently, by all accounts, were brutal. They were throwing full water bottles, shouting at him, in Spanish, "Go back to your own country." And the disappointing thing about all this is that his mum was there in the stands watching all this unfold. When we spoke to her, she couldn't even describe how she felt when she was recounting this scenario. But she knew exactly what they wanted. For all that, the club acted like nothing happened, right? No report filed, no consequences, just back to business as usual. So what happened? The football system had completely failed this kid. It was shocking. Now, these are just two stories that I've recounted, and let me tell you, they're just the tip of the iceberg. We have heard hundreds like them in our research. The top leagues, sure, they get the media attention and take action when things go wrong, obviously, but the lower leagues, completely unchecked. They're ignored, and that's when discrimination like this festers. So, what's the takeaway, right? It's simple. I think federations need to step up, and they need to step up in a big way. They need to investigate these things properly to protect the players, these young kids, all of them. It doesn't matter their age, their nationality, or their level of football, whether they're in an academy or they're playing professionally. From what I know over the last, 15, 20 years, football is supposed to bring people together. Isn't that what all sports meant to do? And if that's true, if FIFA really stand by their values of, what are they, integrity, fair play, transparency, inclusivity, accountability, unity, I think there are more, then seriously, those people running the game need to make sure that this sort of toxic behaviour is stamped out at all levels. And I mean at all levels, from Division One football, professional football, right through to lower divisions and Jeremy Whiston, rather. His story in particular shows the negative or the toll that football can take on young players. So he joined, I'll shorten this, but he joined Manchester City's academy at 13. Obviously, it was his dream. In fact, it would be any kid's dream, right? But after he suffered an knee injury, he got dropped from the academy. There was very little support at the time, and unfortunately, he ended up taking his own life at 18. At 18, for God's sake. That's heartbreaking. And it didn't need to happen, okay? So this is why I'm so fired up about this issue. The emotional and mental health of players, especially in the lower leagues, is completely overlooked. You know, these kids are under so much pressure to perform. They deal with financial instability, as I've mentioned earlier, racism, bullying, humiliation, and sometimes they're simply exploited and taken advantage of. And when you're a teenager and you're alone in a foreign country, at a new club, you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, it's literally on the side of impossibility. It becomes extremely hard. So, plenty of players have spoken about anxiety and depression, obviously made worse by isolation when they move to new clubs or countries. It really is too much for anyone, let alone a teenager or a kid chasing his dream. It shouldn't be part of the experience. It just shouldn't. And football's got to do better. It just has to. There's no question about it. And people need to step up. And the research that we've done over the last 4 years to try, not so much, expose it, but, we want to take federations to task so they can actually step up and do something to rectify this. Anyway. That's literally only 1% of what we discovered on this 4-year journey across the world, talking to so many former, current and aspiring footballers.